Hello, everybody, and welcome to one more panel regarding critical raw materials. I'm Michalis Mathiulakis. I'm the Academic Director of the Greek Energy Forum. The issue of critical raw materials is obviously a very important one. It's something that we will be discussing more and more in the future. So here we are to talk about two different aspects of it. One, mining itself, and then the second regarding recycling and how we can help the whole process through our own means in the European Union. In this panel we have four distinguished speakers. We have Mr. Danilo Alfredo Bonato, Managing Director of Erion from Italy. We have Mr. Lorenzo Tavazzi, Senior Partner from the European House Ambrosetti from Italy. We have Mr. Christos Balaskas, the Vice President of Commercial Growth and External Relations from Eldorado Gold and the President of Eldorado Gold in Greece. And we have Mr. Mario Zorizzo. I'm sorry for the accent, I think I'm okay. Head of Technical and Strategic Unit for the Department of Sustainability of ENEA, the Italian National Agency for New Technologies, Energy and Sustainable Economic Development from Italy. We will start with a round of questions and then see how our time is going, and then we will hopefully have time for a second round of questions. Let me start with you, Mr. Bonato. We have the Critical Raw Material Act due to the proposal of the Commission that is supposed to pass from the Parliament. There are a lot of targets there. One of them, when it comes to recycling capacity, EU's recycling capacity, is that the EU must meet at least 25% of its annual consumption through recycling of strategic raw materials. I believe this is new ground for the European Union. It's something that shows a lot of prospect. However, we need to see and investigate, is the proposal or the whole approach from the Commission offering enough incentives and the regulatory security needed to attract new investments in this sector? And then, do we have the volumes? I mean, we want the targets, but do we have the volumes to be able to actually say realistically that we can get around these targets?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah. Good afternoon. Thank you. And let me start saying that a common union framework is really appreciated. So we need it. Because of the complexity and the translational dimension of strategic raw materials value chain, member states alone, they cannot really face the risk of disruption of supply of critical raw materials. So we need to start with this critical raw materials brand new regulation. That's a good point, I think, for all of us. Target, you mentioned the 25% target of union recycling capacity of the total annual, let's say, consumption of strategic raw materials. That's really tough. It's really ambitious, probably too much, but I think it's important to have a benchmark. We need to move in the right direction. It could be 20%, 27, 25 is okay. We need to move in that direction. Of course, what are the concerns? We do not have a baseline, so we don't have a starting point. We have to reach 25%, but starting from where? The share of strategic raw materials available in key waste streams, such as WEEE, e-waste, or batteries, we have no information. And many WEEE and batteries are shipped outside the Union and not recycled in Europe. Also, recycling technologies are often not adapted to the specificities of critical raw materials. So there is a lot of work to do. What I think is that to be successful, there are really many things in this regulation, probably too many, I would say, that have to move in the right direction. Let me give you three quick examples. The first one is related to the cross-border strategic project. This is the key measure that the Commission has defined. We need streamlined and predictable permitting procedures. That's clear. But we know coming from Italy, I don't know about Greece, that complexity and excessive length of the national permitting granting processes, usually they undermine the willingness of investors to come and invest. So this is something that has to work. This strategic project concept is very powerful, but it has to work properly. We need to develop a strong union market for recycled critical raw materials. That's another big problem. If we plan to invest, let's make an example, in secondary neodymium oxide for permanent magnets, then we need European companies that manufacture strategic technologies to buy this neodymium oxide. So we need to close the loop. If we extract rare earth elements, then we need to use it in Europe if possible. A third example, or let's say concern that I have personally, is that the member states, all member states, and the commissions must be reliable and consistent in performing several critical tasks. There is a long list. Just give you very quick examples. They need to appoint a single point of contact for investors, so one single point of contact per country. They need to place the proper amount of resources and people to support all these very complex processes. They need to assure a quick resolution of legal disputes. Usually it takes time and it's cumbersome. They need to assure permit granting processes within 15 months for recycling projects. Now in Italy, the average is 3 years. So going down to 15 months is a big challenge. Of course, we have to work with the Commission. And we also, the Commission committed to implement a marketplace for off-takers and promoters of strategic projects. So a European marketplace to exchange, critical raw materials, and also to implement a system to aggregate demand on strategic raw materials for interested buyers. So just to say that there are many, many things to implement to make a successful implementation of the regulation. So the volumes are there. Let me just say that in Europe, we generate probably 10 million tons of e-waste per year, and the recycling rate could be 85%. So the potential, actually, we have the potential to at least contribute probably 25 or 20, I don't know, to the global demand that we have in Europe. So there are many other challenges. I don't have time. For instance, how to harmonize this regulation with the other directives concerning waste streams, so they must be harmonized in some way. So, but this is just to introduce the main challenges. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm keeping an optimistic vibe out of what you said, in the sense that if the volumes are there and we need to organize ourselves in the market, this is something that Europeans, we are good at. As long as we understand the importance of it, then maybe, so that's a good thing we can take out of. Mr. Zavasi, I want to ask you the same question, pretty much. Do you agree that we have the volumes, that we have the incentives, that we are there? But furthermore, I understand that you have conducted a study on the similar issue in Italy about the same subject, and you ran some simulations. So could you share your experience and your findings along with your opinion about the whole issue?
Yes, okay, it's fine. With great pleasure. First of all, a very good afternoon to everybody. I think almost evening to everybody. And it's a real pleasure to be here, and I praise the organizers to have devoted 2 sessions to discuss the issue of critical raw materials, because in my opinion is an existential issue for the future of Europe and our economies. Yes, I do share the vision of Danilo, and probably I have some shade of pessimism to some extent, meaning that, and allow me to link back to the previous session, just to recall some facts and figures to frame the situation. that we are living here in Europe with respect to critical raw materials. As is well known, the latest census by the European Commission framed 34 critical raw materials. Well, in 19 out of these 34, we have a dependency ratio on import above 80%. And in 11 out of these 34 critical raw materials, the ratio is 100%. So that's the first part of the story. The second part is 3.3 trillion euros of industrial value at European level that is linked to the critical raw materials. So in other words, 1/4, more or less, 23% to be precise, of the European GDP could not exist without reliable, secure, and continuous supply of critical raw materials. And the tricky part of the story, as has been said earlier, is that we depend very much on import, and we depend very much on a few suppliers, namely China, for 2/3 of the entire import in Europe, but also on the Republic Democratic of Congo. Australia is nice, okay, but Turkey, Russia, and so on and so forth. And unfortunately, nowadays we are not sharing more or less the same geopolitical view of the world. In Italy, for example, just to consider the case of Italy, is even trickier, the situation, because Italy has some 700 billion euros of industrial production that is linked to critical raw materials, 38% of our national GDP. So again, that's why I choose the word of existential threat, or let's say task for the future. So this is the framework that we are considering. Yes, some volumes are there, and for sure the Critical Raw Material Act is a very important step forward in order to move the situation in a more favorable condition. But it's not definitely easy to do that, because we have to bridge a very significant gap compared to other geopolitical players. As been mentioned earlier, for example, the need to act proactively at international level, for example. Yes, we are doing that as European, but China is doing that, the US are doing that, so we are in a very fierce competition. So it's, again, not an easy task. What we focus on, for example, with the study that you referred to, was practical levers to act in a short-term vision, and in particular focus on the waste from electrical and electronic equipment. And we discovered some interesting opportunities, let's say. And sorry, I forgot to mention another important number. If we consider the recycling rate on average at European level, of course there are differences among the 34 critical materials, but on average 26 out of these 34 critical raw materials, the recycling rate of Europe is below 10%. And for some of them, in particular rare earths, we are talking about less than 1%. So we have to move forward in a more significant way. Getting back to the role of collection and recycling is fundamental. According to our estimate, as of now, and Daniel, correct me if I'm wrong, we are around, in Italy, 36–37% of collection rate of which is quite fine. We are lagging a little bit behind the European average, which is 46, but we do have in Italy very good compass and best practice in terms of the organization of the system. Well, if we consider the target by 2030 set by the European Commission of 65% of collection, well, we could have an additional 300,000 tons of we collected. And from this huge amount of we collected, we can extract 17,000 tons of critical raw materials, with another numbers are equal to 1/4, so 25% of the entire import from China that Italy did in 2022. So we are talking of huge opportunities of development. Yes, the opportunity is there, for sure. We have the volume. We need to increase even further the volume, but we also need to act on many other aspects, starting from the increase of manufacturing capacity, plans for transformation, and so on. And I would like to mention, because the time is running already short, in my opinion, in my view, one fundamental aspect that we do not need to forget is the public acceptance, public opinion. We are quite familiar in Italy, but I think that is the case for many other European countries, that the NIMBY syndrome, so not in my backyard syndrome, is very fierce. According to one very recent survey in Italy, 6 Italians out of 10 do not know the very meaning of the word we, for example. And so, again, by creating a much broader and larger and concrete awareness in the public opinion, I think that should be much easier to move forward in the investments, in the creation of the framework, and so on and so forth.
Okay, great, thank you. I would like to keep this thing that you mentioned about public opinion and the common issue of not in my backyard and how awareness might help, because I think this is a critical issue in a lot of things. And actually, with that in mind, my question to you, Mr. Balaskas, because we say, it's as if we woke up one day and we realized, okay, these raw materials, they're critical. Strategic value, we need something to do about it. Let's recycle as much as possible. However, we still need to mine them. We still need to get the bulk from someplace. We heard about China, it's a big issue always, but we have our own potential. However, when it comes to that, we say yes, but. So, in your opinion, how central are they, the critical raw materials, for the green transition? How are we going to combine them with our plans for mining? Is the regulatory framework good enough for your business, and how do you see this progressing?
I'd like to take the opportunity and start from the start of your question, how we came about. We have these wonderful sessions today about raw materials, about recycling, and that had happened, you know why, and before that in previous years, Delphi Economic Forum, I don't think they were introducing a slot for raw materials. Of course, you know why this has happened, and I'd like to take the opportunity to make a long introduction about it. That has happened, why? Because as contrary to what Francis Fukuyama predicted, history did not end. Geopolitical tensions are everywhere. Despite that we thought that the wars were a thing of the past, actually, well, it's very much present. And as you can imagine, we suddenly realized also that climate change, oh yes, our livelihood is going to disappear very soon. The things we hold dear to our hands are like smartphones, laptops, cars, they might disappear because we are destroying the environment. And at the same time, guess what? We don't have the necessary metals. So what we do? Finally, we turn to the laggards, the ones we don't like, the blacks, if I can use the non-legitimate term this day in Europe. Because who are the blacks? There are the miners, the ones that we kicked away. We sent them outside of Europe. Now we actually need them. We want them to produce, but where we can find them? Of course, reality is that, as one of my fellow colleagues in a previous panel said, Europe is not mined out. There is potential, and especially in Greece, but I believe in all parts of Europe, there are metals to be mined. And definitely and obviously we need the recycling. There is no question about it, but it's not the total answer. We have to mine them. I happen to represent a company, actually a foreign direct investor in Greece, Eldorado Gold, that has invested and believes in strategic raw materials. That's why I think there is the investment in Skouries, in Chalkidiki, of Skouries mine, which will produce gold, but primarily copper, which is the key metal for the energy transition and the digital transition. And through this, I do believe that projects like that are around and can help changing the situation in Europe. And of course, those critical raw materials and strategic materials are central to the energy transition for a very simple reason. Because contrary to the conventional fossil fuels, we need a lot more metals like nickel, cobalt, aluminium, rare earths, copper, to have batteries, to have electrification, to be able to do all those nice things. Without them, we cannot do it. Now, you asked me about the regulatory framework. I heard in previous panels that for all the good things that the regulation is changing. And indeed, I think it's changing. But we do need, at the same time, to copy best practices on the regulatory framework that exist. Not only within Europe. Within Europe, actually, we need to harmonize the regulation between countries that actually have exploited their mineral resources, like Sweden, Finland, Greenland, and Norway. At the same time, we need to copy how well they're doing it and environmentally responsible in Canada and in Australia. This is vitally important. If there is something that as a message can be sent to the political leadership in Greece, but also to the European leadership, is that after the European Parliament elections, I think there should be focus on harmonizing the regulation and making it so that it is actually competitive, that it's not putting a huge burden on the European producers, and help the industry to progress. It would be ideal if there were committees looking at the regulation to simplify it, firstly, and also all the codes, mining codes, to become far more efficient and effective. And of course, all the permitting processes and the licensing processes to be far more effective and quick. Because if it takes a mine to be in, the average time of a mine to be built in Europe, it's 16 years. That's not going to achieve the green gold targets of Europe. There's no way that we can do that. Things must change, and so that's my humble message. We do need a change, but we have to be practical about it. And I was thrilled hearing the initiatives that the Deputy Minister of Energy and Environment announced, and I think work has been done. Definitely we are here, and I think the Mining Association of Greek Companies is here to help out.
Thank you, Mr. Balaskas. I think the reference about the difficult conditions for people working in the mining industry, getting dirty from the work, is an image that we need to see that the whole industry is getting over it. The whole sustainability and the effort of the way to improve the way that things are mined is very important to change also the public perspective on the issue. Also, the necessity that made the European Union switch the way and invite back mining because it's a strategic issue. It's very important. When it comes to strategy, the idea is, again, like security, lower the ability, gaining freedom away from influence from third parties, right? So that's what we're doing. So with this, I'd like to ask Mr. Zorizo, do you think that it's able for the European Union, seeking strategic autonomy, seeking the idea that we can be autonomous when it comes to critical raw materials, but at the same time, we want to be able to have sustainable supply chains. Can we combine these two? Is this a realistic goal, or do we have to prioritize? Do we have to put it on a scale and say, you know what, we want full sustainable supply chains, and on the other hand, we want autonomy? We have to choose one or another, or can we balance it out?
Hello. Oh, okay, hi. Thank you very much for the question. And what to say? Of course, it's a very challenging issue, this one. I don't think it's a clear trade-off, because of course we cannot say we can live autonomously from the rest of the world. It was very interesting listening to the other member of the panel that they highlighted all the issues that we are facing here in Europe, basically regarding the regulatory framework, the time framework that we gave ourselves. We have to achieve the target, which are already very ambitious in a very narrow time frame. But at least we understand that we have both the stock from the end-of-waste product and from the, let's say, mining, from the primary product in terms of achieving a little bit of this independence and be able to create or build up a sustainable value chain. The problem is that do we have the proper technologies? Are we able to, in the time frame that we have, to build up a proper value chain coherent with all the other regulation of the European Union, meaning starting from the circular economy strategy framework down to all the environmental regulation that we have. This is the big issue. In terms of technology, of course, we have the technology for recycling and recovery materials from end of waste. But we have we are facing each day a new challenge, because each new product is a little bit different, so we have to fine-tune the technology. We have to come up with new technologies that are enhanced and allow us to recover more materials from the same end of waste rather than the specific materials. I like to simplify. I don't want just to recover gold or silver. I want to recover both from the same motherboard or electric device. I want to recover much more of them. This will allow us to decrease the economy of scale of the specific plant and to enhance the value chain. We also have to look from a strategic point of view on an overall framework. Let's say, for example, with the circular economy framework, we have to build up new business model. We do not have to think that the need of mining is going back to the old linear model. We need to still think forward in a circular way, meaning that we have to start, first of all, eco-design the product. Therefore, starting from how can I recycle at the end of its life the product, and then we have also to build a new business model on a local level, for example with industrial symbiosis, meaning that we have to enhance cooperation between different industry or intra-industry. This will allow this from one side will increase the recycling productivity, from the other one will allow also to, let's say, starting from the cooperation between different agents, it will allow also to spring new innovation that will improve all the different line of activity. In terms of cooperation, it was said in the previous panel. Yes, right now we are strongly dependent. We were dependent from Russia from energy. At the same percentage ratio, we are dependent from China in terms of critical raw material. We have to shift to have a new alliance. We are starting. They mentioned bilateral agreement with, let's say, more friendly or partners such as Canada or United States. We have to improve that way. Of course, this is the the big challenge. The usual solution at this your question is that we have to approach this issue with a strategic planning. But the problem is that we have a very narrow time frame. Usually a very, it was said, to start a mining we need 16 years, it was said, so we arrived, no more time. So we, from my, as you mentioned, I come from a research center, we are a strong advocate for recycling and for building up new business model, which will, let's say, change. I think we do think that the new business model, the economy, circular economy, will be the game changer in these terms of building up sustainable and value chain. And of course, with also the aspect related to the mining, which of course it's an important aspect. Also, if in terms of let's say carbon footprint or whatever, it's for many materials. Of course, it's much better recycling than mining, but we cannot avoid the primary sources.
Okay. That's good, thank you. I am keeping the thing about that we don't have time, because I think this is such a big issue, so critical. I mean, I would be among the ones who say, you know what, this is strategic importance. It means it goes back to national security for all the EU member states. Let's take our time, do our plans. But of course, we don't have the time, so we have to reconfigure how to do this more effectively, I suppose. Okay, thank you for your answers. We have time for a short round. I would like to address the same question for everybody, although I can see that there is a picture slowly formulating from your answers. However, I would like to hear from everybody, if you were to sum up how you see things going forward in the future. What do you see ahead? How would you prioritize things? Where should we start? Exactly because we don't have time, and it is important. How should we start? Let's start with you.
Sure. Two very quick comments. The first one is that recycling is very connected to sustainability. My organization last year collected and recycled 300,000 tons of e-waste and waste batteries, avoiding 1.6 million tons of CO2 equivalent emissions. So just to say, we can combine, at least recycling, I think also green mining, but that's another story. The second quick message is that, as you said, we must be realistic, pragmatic. My question is, which are the top 5 strategic raw materials value chain where we want Europe to lead? So we must, to make some choice. There are so many, 34 critical raw materials. So we need to be selective. Do we want to be the leader for permanent magnets, for instance? This is a key topic in the critical raw materials regulation. If that's the case, then we need all member states to work in the same direction. We need to focus and to develop a secondary market to ensure security of neodymium oxide. So I think focusing is key. We have limited time, not so many resources, so let's focus, and the European Critical Raw Material Board will be key. We have this body at European level, so they have to make the right decision for Europe.
Okay, focus, that's a good starting point. Mr. Tavadze.
Well, in short words, we need to be pragmatic and realistic. That's fundamental. I fully share the vision of Danilo. If you consider that China is in the position that is holding nowadays, it's not a matter of by chance or by fate. Starting back in 1990s, when the former leader of the Communist Party famously said, "Middle East has oil, China has rare earth." Since then, start investing a lot, billions and billions, in order to create industrial capabilities, in order to exert a very influential soft power at the international level, and in order to create a very leading positioning all along the value chains. So in short, we do need to rethink structurally the entire strategic posture of Europe. And this is a huge task. We are not just talking about critical raw materials, we are not just talking about twin transition, or we are not just talking of vertical pillars. We need to rethink all the decisions that has been made over the last 15, 20, 25 years. A huge task indeed. Getting to the point of the critical raw material, in my opinion, we needed to deploy a very long-term vision on different levels. Mining is fundamental to re-enhance, to re-empower the capacity, the mining capacity of Europe. We do need to be very proactive at international level. Much more diversification, friendshoring, whatever you call it, but we need to act because, again, China is doing that, the US are doing that, and so on and so forth. We do need to move forward, and this, in my opinion, one of the levers that we have as European to push forward the boundaries of innovation much more in order to find new solutions of problems and find alternatives to some extent to certain critical raw materials, for example. Eco-design has been mentioned, fundamental, and finally to apply in practical and real terms the concept of circularity. So there was and still is a very famous song, a little bit less conversation, more action, probably is what we need, in my opinion.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Balaskas.
I'd like to add on the thoughts of the fellow panelists about focusing on what it will be the most critical materials that we will be champions in Europe. I think it's essential. And at the same time, research and innovation on the supply chain and the value chain of critical raw materials. This is vitally important. There has to be a lot of incentives for research and innovation to provide new solutions to old problems and think out of the box. That's the way to go about. While at the same time, I think we also need to reskill and upskill our workforces because there is this sector is not very sexy, it's not very attractive, so we have to find ways to make it sexy and attractive for younger people, for entrepreneurs, engineers, scientists, anyone that we would be able to utilize. And last but not least, to develop the framework for financial engineering and incentives, financial incentives for investments in the raw material sector.
Great, thank you. Mr. Turiza, we'll finish with you.
Well, very few words to add. I do think that besides all these things, the last things that was said, we do need to take on board also the financial institution, the banking, and in order to be able to finance all these efforts in terms of new technology, upskilling of professions, all these activities. And from the regulatory point of view, we do need to have, let's say, a level field of a regulatory framework between the different sectors. Otherwise, of course, the finance will go where the regulatory framework is most stable and more defined. Therefore, we do not have to come with, I don't know, for example, mining a very precise regulatory framework with all the pathway defined in terms of action that in this situation all banks or private investor will finance this specific activity, maybe legging down back all the recycling investment or improvement of industrial processing materials. So this has to be key. The regulatory framework has to be on the same level field. They do not have to panic in terms of running after the accident of the news. We have a very good strategic framework settled by circular economy. We have to stick with that, and we have to improve it also with other fields, including also the green mining, also the evolution of mining. But that's it.
Great, thank you. Thank you. We have run out of time. If I was to sum up what we heard, I mean, I'll start the other way around. I mean, regulation and the level playing field, this is something that we have been doing in the EU, that's good. Upskilling, financing, that's good stuff. Being proactive, pragmatic, realistic, and focused, I wouldn't count so much. The recent past hasn't shown that we're so good in the European Union. However, the European Union has been moving forward through crisis, and we've just been through one. And maybe this is a chance for this really, really important thing to move forward. Thank you all very much for your input, and thank you.